Welcome to this webinar, Be Your Best Self, 5 Steps to Release Your Full Potential. I am your host, Nefi Oguntoye. I am a self-love mentor and entrepreneur, and I live in the UK. I just want to say a huge congratulations for showing up. 90% of success is just showing up. So thank you for signing up to this short webinar on becoming the best version of yourself. If you haven't already, you can download your free guide, Be Your Best Self, in the materials section. Over the coming minutes, I'm going to be sending a lot of information your way. It's also a good idea to set some time aside each day to read my guide and act on the information it contains. Of course, if you want to get a head start on this, I've put together a no-holds-barred manual that covers everything in detail. You can find it on my website, nefiaguntoye.com/shop-2. Some of what we will cover are how to get to know yourself as a person. I'm going to show you a neat technique that you can use to discover what's really holding you back. You're going to learn how to overcome the fear of failure or the fear of success. We're going to talk about ways to silence that nagging inner voice that keeps telling you you're not good enough, and a lot more besides that. So let's get started with section 1. In this section, I'm just going to ask you a quick question. The question is, if you met yourself for the first time as a stranger, what would you think of yourself? Not that you should care whether other people like you or not. We'll talk about that more in a later section. But would you think you were sincere? Sincerity and integrity are inseparably linked. Integrity comes from within. Without it, you're a fraud and you're living a lie. There's no way you can be the best version of yourself under those circumstances. With what we'll learn in this e-course, you'll be able to address this issue and more. I just want to end with this quote, which says, "Think of yourself or others will think for you without thinking of you." And that's by Henry David Thoreau. So let's go a little bit deeper and let's talk about who are you. The first step to take in becoming the best version of yourself is to get to know yourself. So who are you? What does the real you look like? It's always best to define yourself as a person and not by the role that you play. Too often we pigeonhole ourselves by the roles we play in life, by being someone's husband or wife or son or daughter, or by our occupation. I did this myself at the start. I said I'm a self-love mentor and entrepreneur. But really, that's what we are. It's not who we are. There is a great deal of difference between the two. What we are has very little to do with who we are. In order to discover who you really are, ask yourself about your greatest regrets and achievements. What could you do more of? What should you do less of? What do you regret most? What is your proudest achievement? What has kept you from achieving your true potential? Ideally, where would you like to be in 5 years' time? What do you need to change in your life to help you get there? These are difficult questions and require a lot of thought and soul searching, but be honest with your answers. Bear in mind that life is a different journey for everyone. Our goals and what we want out of life changes over time too. So what you want in your 20s is a lot different from what you want in your 60s, for example. Too often, we let other people define our goals for us based on what they want in their lives, and this is a big mistake. Everybody has their own agenda, and it's always about them. You should have your own agenda too, and in order to be the best version of yourself, your agenda must be all about you. That's not being selfish. Like we discussed in a previous lesson, it's about your own integrity and sincerity. Step 1 in the guide explores this further. Next, we're going to talk about your reason why. Oftentimes, people have a hard time figuring out what they really want in life, and similarly, what's preventing them from getting it. Have a think about your life. What's holding you back? A good way to answer that question is to use the 5 whys technique. This is where you delve deep and ask yourself for the reason why 5 times in a row. This can sometimes uncover hidden reasons for why you do things that you may not be aware of. So let me give you an example. Let's say you want to lose weight. You've tried all sorts of diets, but you can't just seem to shift those pounds. So the first why would be, why is that? And then the answer could be, because you're comfort eating. And then the second why would be, why do you do that? Because you and your spouse are arguing all the time. And the third why is why. And you could say because he or she wants to live in a better neighborhood. So the fourth why could be, why can't you move? And the answer could be because we can't afford to live anywhere else. And the fifth why could be, why is that? And you could say because you keep getting passed over for promotions at work and you don't make enough money. So you see, the real problem is not a weight problem, but it's the work related problem. Now use the 5 whys technique to understand why you're not making any progress at work. Okay, so this is a fairly simple example, but it does work. Apply the technique to your own situation and prepare to be surprised. Step 2 in the guide explores this further, so if you haven't already, make sure you get it from the material section. So in this section, I want to talk about stuff. It's no secret that things, both good and bad, happen to us in life. How we deal with things helps to define our character. When we deal with them well, we can easily become the best version of ourselves. When we deal with them badly, we find ourselves leading unhappy, unfulfilled lives. Oftentimes we don't do things or put off making decisions because we're afraid of failure. We worry that if we try something and fail, people will think we're stupid or incompetent, so it's best not to try at all. But it's important to realise that failure is a natural part of life and doesn't mean the end of the world. Some of the most successful people to ever walk this planet have failed multiple times before they achieved success. Bill Gates' first business venture went bust. Stephen King's first published novel, Carrie, was rejected by 30 publishers before going on to become one of the most successful horror books of all time. Sometimes the only way to find out what works is to eliminate what doesn't work, and that means trying and failing over and over again. Strange as it seems, you may also be afraid of success. For example, do you get nervous when everything seems to be going well? Do you get close to making a major breakthrough, but somehow something happens to make it fail in the end? If this sort of thing happens repeatedly, it isn't a coincidence. It's actually a fear of success. This fear hides in your subconscious to sabotage your hopes and dreams. Overcome this fear by remembering who you are, accepting you won't please everyone, and by being comfortable with every decision that you make. As the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once put it, the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacles to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. If you want to dive into this further, then step 3 in the guide explores this a bit more. In this section, we're going to talk about taming that nagging negative voice. Oh, we all hear this voice from time to time, so it's completely normal. You know, the one that keeps telling you that you're useless and will never amount to anything. The voice that tells you what you're not good at and rubs salt in the wounds of failure. The one that erodes your self-confidence and damages your self-esteem. Self-talk is a normal process and we all experience it. However, when it becomes filled with irrational, negative ideas, it can become a problem. Bear in mind that the story that goes on in your head is often 100 times worse than the real story going on in your day-to-day life. There are several ways to overcome this. So you can start by eliminating negative vocabulary. Banish words like can't, never, won't, but, should, and try, and replace them with more positive words. Next, imagine the worst case scenario. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but just bear with me. Then come up with a strategy to deal with that scenario. The worst thing really happens, but if they do, you'll have a plan in place to deal with them positively. Often, that negative inner voice starts with somebody telling you something negative. The doubt begins and starts to fester. Soon, negative self-talk becomes a habit. Sometimes this has its roots in childhood, with a teacher always putting you down, or other kids sees in you your lack of ability in one particular area or another in order to make themselves look or feel good. So the final step is to surround yourself with positive, supportive people. These are people who will help you achieve your potential by highlighting your achievements and giving only supportive, constructive criticism. You should always strive to be that sort of person to other people too. So step 4 in the guide explores this further. My next tip for you is to stop caring what other people think. I'm the first person to admit that some people don't like me very much. And you know what? I don't care. Some people don't like the way I look or dress. Other people don't share my opinions. Many people think I'm an awkward so and so because I don't fit into their view of what I should be or do. My attitude to all of this is tough. Get over it. I didn't used to be this way. I used to be a real people pleaser. I said yes to everything and developed a reputation for being a real pushover. It was hard to tell whether other people ended and I began. My decisions were based on what I thought would make other people happy or comfortable. I thought this made me easygoing, likable, and generally pretty cool. In truth, it just made me the opposite. People took advantage of me and of my supposedly good nature. The upshot was that I was miserably unhappy. I was despised and disrespected. Nobody valued me for who I was, just what they could get out of me. I had no self-respect whatsoever. One day I took a good look at myself in a mirror and I didn't like what I saw. I knew that if I was going to be the best version of myself, the one that I was meant to be, I had to make some changes fast. So I took the conscious decision from now on I was going to be the real Neffy, and if people didn't like it, they knew where they could stick it. And you know what? While some people became really hostile, others began to respect me more. They valued my opinions just as I respected, but didn't always agree with theirs. The same is true for you. Your real friends will accept you for who you really are, and if they don't, they're not your real friends. So step 4 in the guide also explores this further. So if you haven't already, make sure you get it from the materials section. My last tip for you is this: you can't please everyone. Just let that sink in, because I know there's still going to be some people who don't really believe this, but the truth is you really can't. You can't please everyone. Like so many of you, I've been watching more TV lately. Interestingly, I have recently been introduced to a brand new channel that shows old movies and classic TV shows. It's called Cozy TV. It's real comforting nostalgia. The other day I was watching an episode of McCloud. In case you're unfamiliar with it, it's a show from the 1970s about a cowboy who gets transferred to New York City. This particular episode centered around a concert by Rick Nelson, where he sings the song called Garden Party. You can read about the story behind the song on Wikipedia, and it's Garden Party by Rick Nelson. The chorus is pretty apt to what we've been discussing over the past few minutes, and it says, quote, "But it's alright now. I've learned my lesson well. You see, you can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself." End quote. And it's so true. You can't please everyone, so don't even try. Just be the best version of yourself. Some people will like it, others won't. That doesn't matter. Make "to thine own self be true" your motto, and your life will improve dramatically. So within the confines of this short webinar, I've only been able to scratch the surface of this fascinating subject. There's a whole bunch of stuff I haven't had time to tell you, like how to knock down your barriers and ways to reconnect with your inner child, to name a few. But I go into a lot more detail in my ebook, Becoming the Best Version of Yourself. I've also put together some worksheets and some resource sheets to help make the subject a little bit easier. And I still have a few copies left, but they are going fast. So grab your own copy from my shop www.nefioguntoya.com/shop-2 and become the best version of yourself today. I really want to thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope that you go forward and you live an abundant, best life.